Hello, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Oh man, we are in our last discussion about everyday narcissism. Yours, mine, and ours. I don't know. What are we talking about today? What chapters?
9 through 14. So we're kind of doing I don't know, crash course, but what would be the better phrase for that? A br
Condensed,
yeah, a condensed version of the remainder of the book. So, but the chapters are actually really short.
very short. Yeah. And I
So,
don't, yeah, everyday healing, chapter 14 is 2.5 pages.
yep. Chapter 10 was 1.5 pages.
There you go. So quick chapters.
I don't even know if that counts as a chapter, but I guess it does. So, chapter 9 talks about distracting ourselves and each other. So, the notes that I took on this: as kids, we were never given permission to feel or taught to feel how to deal with our emotions.
I'm going to interrupt you.
Oh,
I was going to say, you could
oh,
see
you were gonna say.
the background if you want everybody to see in case people walk down there. I don't know.
Probably not. It's just a dress that's hanging up and drying, but it's not cute. Okay. So as kids, we were never given permission to feel or taught how to deal with our emotions. And two, as adults, we distract ourselves to go numb. So on page 127,
Yeah.
there is a fabulous list of examples.
Common distractors.
So there's a bunch here, and I won't read all of them, but I have highlighted some on this page and on the next one. So for myself, chores, cleaning, computer games, complaining, entertaining, Facebook, Googling, meditation, recently added, minimizing, organizing, phoning, prayer, reading, relationships, social media, texting, victim energy, video games, videos and movies, work, and writing mental stories. So, not proud of all of those, but
It's interesting that positive things can also be distraction, like things that you use to distract, which in the dialectical behavioral therapy field, people who have very strong emotions and have a difficult time regulating their emotions,
Mhm.
this common distractors list is necessary. Not necessarily the negative ones like alcohol, anger, arrogance, blaming, but there are definitely chores, cleaning, computer games, entertainment, exercise, knitting, humor, hobbies. Like those are good hobby like things to have as distractions because you have to distract yourself in order to relax so you can come back to the problem that's creating the emotional distress for you. So in her book, why does she describe all of these as distractors? Like, is this a positive thing? Is this a negative thing?
so she says they can be both, but it depends on what you're using it for. So,
Context of what you're using it.
right. So if it helps, she says absolutely do it. But if it's making it worse and you're avoiding whatever that situation or emotion is, then you need to not use it. Um,
So I would say an even more practical, applicable, and beneficial way of approaching this, or maybe understanding it, would be to ask yourself, if I turn to um, Facebook and I'm using it as a distraction, can I stop myself from doing it? Or does it control me? So, like eating, a lot of people will eat, they use food as a coping mechanism.
Mhm.
Does that control you? Could you choose a different distraction? If you can't choose a different distraction, then that's a negative coping skill.
Mhm. Mhm. Definitely. But I also think like, and as I was looking through some of these, like some of the more helpful ones, like meditation and prayer, obviously, journaling. Um, it makes me, I was kind of laughing as I was reading through this list because it's so randomized. It goes from knitting to judging others, but it's just alphabetized. So lying either to ourselves or to others, playing sports, pleasing others, politics, pouting,
Lying either to ourselves or to others. What do you think that means? I think people do this all the time, and I don't think they're aware of it.
just denying how we actually feel about something, or brushing it off, or saying it's not a big deal. I hear that a lot too. Like, not a big deal, it's fine, it's fine. And then like you can clearly see the emotion behind that person's face and it's not fine.
And sometimes it can be fine. We're like, yeah, it's not a big deal. But if you catch yourself using things like that and then later complaining and just feeling some sort of negative way about it and you're venting, like then you are lying to yourself and to the person that you're telling, oh, that's fine, not a big deal. Sure, I'll do that.
Yeah,
Can't believe she always comes in my office and asks me to do these things. Like, doesn't she understand that I have, like, no, that's your responsibility. You're not setting boundaries. Take responsibility for your own life and for your own happiness. Like, stop making it everybody else's responsibility.
exactly. And that becomes the victim energy too, right?
Yep.
Okay, so
I just have to do this for my kids. They just have to be in all the, no, they don't. Stop. Stop blaming your kids for your disappointment. Tell them no, set boundaries. Teach them that they can't have everything they want.
yep.
And that's okay. You're not a bad mom because you're doing it.
Yep. And sometimes you just have to say the hard thing. I had yesterday my nephew was here, and now granted he was tired, so he was just kind of like emotional. And I feel that when you're really tired, you just, everything, you feel everything. But he was playing so much and he obviously needed to go to the restroom. He was doing like the pee dance, and I'm like, Wesley, go use the bathroom. He's like, but I don't want to, and I don't need to. I'm like, Wesley, go. And he went, and then he went running off to the bathroom and he was complaining the whole time that he was in there. I'm like, but see, now you can play again. It took what, like 30 seconds? But it just made me laugh because I felt like I had to be the
So
mean
many
aunt.
kids do that.
They just don't want to stop
I'm
and
pee my pants. Who cares?
exactly. Oh, he
I
was
do it when I'm on a road trip. Like I won't stop. I'm not pulling over at the rest area. I'm not going to the rest area. And I just hold it and hold it. And I'm like, just go to the freaking bathroom. Like whether you go now or 30 minutes when you're about to pee your pants from now, like you're still gonna have to stop and go.
your bladder is not going to like stop screaming at you. So, and eventually it's going to become a big problem. So, but I mean, and I know he's 5 and that's like a lesson he's still learning, but I also just told him, I was like, dude, you can break your concentration and come right back to what you're doing and it's going to be fine. But same, like if I get really engrossed in what I'm doing in something, I don't want to get up and, go eat or go to the restroom, whatever it is. But um I think that's also like learning how to take care of yourself and like take breaks. Um, so the other rest of that list: religion, revenge, romance, school, scrapbooking, sex, shopping, smoking or other tobacco use, socializing, television, weight loss or management. I used that one for a long time as my mental health crutch, and
What do you
it
mean?
worked. Like when I would be stressed out or whatever, I'd just go running. That
Hmm.
became my only source of my only strategy for dealing with negative mental
I
feelings.
have a theory too about when we turn coping skills into idols
Yeah.
and then your body falls apart because it's an idol.
Oh yeah. My body has fallen apart from that. So I can't run anymore. I destroyed my knees. So, and it took me a long time to get over that. Um, it was devastating, but
I think you were angry running.
oh, I was without a doubt. I was
And so
using.
all of that emotion is going into the stress of your body.
Mhm.
And so you probably hold a lot of your emotional distress in your knees.
Yep. Yep. I would agree with that. I remember certain days too, coming home from work being so mad at what had happened that I would just run, 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 run. And I didn't care how hard I was on my body, but I would come home so exhausted and I injured myself multiple times. But
So running can be a form of self-harm.
oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think that was what it turned into. It was, almost like a drug. So that's the essence of this chapter. Um, And she names the 4 biggest distractors. You want to guess what they are? You probably
Yeah,
know.
anger, fear, attempting to people pleasers,
Yep.
and victim energy. My two top ones were anger and victim energy. I think
Okay.
consciously maybe was trying to people please, but I've never really been a people pleaser. I've always been the kid that kind of speaks my mind, and which is why everybody has told me that I should be a lawyer. Because apparently that's like the one profession where you're allowed to be assertive and blunt and direct, and people don't
Or
care.
people don't care.
I
Oh,
get threatened to be fired because you said something that was direct and maybe hurt somebody's feelings. Like maybe I should.
I think you
Not going
should.
back to school. Not going back to school.
Unless God said.
Degree. And I get to graduate next spring, and that is good for me. Like
That's
super
so
exciting.
exciting. So exciting. Okay.
If I
So
just lit review, just like I thought about that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to graduate in the spring, and I'm like, if you finish this lit review, like if you pass this
it's
class, or
contingent right now.
contingent upon you writing and finishing this 25-page lit review, and I'm
Does that include so the references are separate from the actual paper, or is that part of it?
yes. No, 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 no. The references are separate because I already have 20 pages and I've only written 5. So that tells you how many pages of references I already have. That is crazy. Crazy.
Thank
Now, granted, I have to have 2 separate reference lists because the one is the original one for the lit review that's in alphabetical order, obviously, but then she has a criteria for a second reference list that is categorized by like journals, dissertations, books, and we have to have a certain number of each one of those. So she wants to make sure that we meet those criteria, and she doesn't want to probably have to go through my reference list and figure out which ones are which. She just wants to see that we did at least 16 articles, at least 10 books. And I'll tell you right now, I think I have like 30 articles and 15 books, 16 books. It's
nice.
ridiculous. But it's so cool. Like, so the classes on coaching, we're getting totally off topic right now, but the classes on coaching, and as a professional counselor, I'm writing out the history of coaching.
Mhm.
And the history of coaching starts in psychology, just like counseling and everything else. So it's like going through like all the different ways we've been coaching. So everything from the coaching field has been taken from what I'm discovering as client-centered therapy and solution-focused behavioral therapy. So my history of coaching outline is also the history of counseling because they're one and the same. Like
Yeah.
you're just taking the skills and techniques from this other field. And what I just discovered last night as I was writing this, because I'm going through like the timetable of it, the 1980s was when coaching really took off. And it was
Oh,
also the same time frame when professional counseling separated itself as its own entity and required certain levels of education and licensure. And I'm
oh
like,
wow.
no wonder you had half the people say, I don't want to fit into that criteria. I'm not going to get licensed. I want to do it my way. And then you have the other half that are like, no, we want this to be known as a professional entity because it's necessary to know what you're doing when you're working with people's mental health and wellness and growth and development and all of that. Because one of the first coaching books ever written is Think and Grow Rich,
Okay.
which was like in the early 1930s. I think like 1937, he wrote that book. And as I read through the 13 principles, it's kind of like the 48 laws of power, where it's God's principles, but it's twisted ever so slightly, and it's used in the form of manipulation. So I found that really interesting as a way to manifest your own outcomes and your own destiny. And as long as you believe it, it will happen. Like that's when that jargon all started. So like kind of like that's a slippery slope to me. Like it's very snake-like and deceptive in a way. And then he says like one of his principles is that when two people work together, a third external power force comes alive in that interaction. And I'm like, well, that's biblical, where Jesus said we're two or more gathered. I will be there with you. And now you're trying to make that like your own self-serving thing, taking God out of it, but trying to use his.
Literal words.
Yeah. And I said, that's literally what the devil does. It's
Yeah.
literally what Satan did and why he's so manipulative and coercive here on earth. So I can see where there's there's the good in it, but if it's taken in the wrong context, there it could be used for evil.
Mm,
So it's just been really an interesting literature review that I'm writing. Maybe it'll get published. I don't know. Maybe not.
I hope so. Did you add that part in there, like the contrast of when you notice that? Is that part of your write-up? I'm just wondering.
It will be in my conclusion.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So,
because that's a really important revelation.
I found that very interesting because I'm like, there's a lot of coaching, like it's not really that big of a deal, but coaching all of a sudden like just had like this explosion in the 80s. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that was when professional counseling had all its regulations put on it to where it's like, no, you can't just go around doing this for people. You need to be educated and trained properly and all of that. And now they're doing that in the coaching field where it's like, you can get certified as a professional coach and you have certain standards and ethics and all of those principles and stuff that you need to follow. But it's like, why didn't you just do that back in the 80s and let it be counseling? So, because it's like psychotherapy is what a lot of like the books on coaching that say why coaching is different from counseling is they compare it to psychotherapy. But professional counseling, literally, Carl Rogers, is the first person to advocate to distinguish that a person's ability to direct their own life as their own expert is what person-centered therapy is, person-centered counseling or client-centered therapy. And that's literally why what like the definition of coaching is. Like coaching is different because we don't act as the expert. We don't give advice. We don't talk about the past. We take you where you're at today and help you get to where you want to go from here to there. And I'm like, well, that's what person-centered counseling is, as well as what solution-focused behavioral therapy is. But all of these techniques in coaching are still specifically taken from the techniques that were first introduced in the psychotherapy.
Yeah. It's like
Issue.
that I feel it's very similar. Here's the spiritual parallel. So all of the different denominations and all the different churches and all the different religions that we have in the world, they all come back to there is one God. And those principles are all
This and they do this. That's how it sounds. Yeah.
right. And so many of those core values are taken from Christianity. Like it is what it is. There, in the beginning there was God and only God. And
And every professional counseling, therapy, coaching, mentorship, consulting, every single course that I've studied about the origins of that go all the way back to how Jesus Christ was all of these things.
mhm,
And I'm like, but in the Bible, he's only referred to as the counselor. Why do you think that is?
yeah.
So you can be a coach and you can work in the present moment moving forward, but if you negate to address the past issues that are blocking what they're incapable of doing in the present moment, then you're not resolving anything. You're only temporarily coming in, helping them for a moment, but then all of that junk is going to come in still later.
We're gonna stay stuck.
Yeah. So I don't know. I find it very interesting. I'm glad I took the class. It taught me a lot about it, but
Is this like your final project for it or
yeah.
okay. Gotcha.
She
Okay.
said it's such a big project. She puts it in the beginning of the class, so it's not like the last thing when everybody, because usually they're condensed semesters. So like you have 8 weeks of one and 8 weeks of another in the same semester, but the last 2 weeks and the first 2 weeks overlap each other. But
Okay.
writing a final project in the last 2 weeks while you're starting a new class, it's very overwhelming. Um, but she's like, I like to put it in the beginning. This is the biggest thing. Like just focus on that and get it done. It's 25 pages. I mean, geez, Louise, and 42 references minimum. And the writing part is easy.
Getting
It's
all the
research,
Yeah.
putting it all together and making it make sense and typing it all out. And then like does by the time you get through 25 pages, I'm the person who's like, does any of this even flow? Like, does the beginning match the end? Explain what's in the middle. But I usually get pretty good grades on my paper, so I guess it does make sense. My brain's just fried by that point, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Just submit it. Who cares? Who care if I fail?
All in there. And usually at that point, like, I mean, it comes off, if it starts off strong and then you explain yourself, you conclude it, it does
Mhm.
its job. You have done
So,
your work.
but this is like one of my concentration courses for the DSL program. So it's a more, I don't want to say it's more important than the other courses, but it's like a focus. Like it's very just like focused on just this.
Yeah.
But everything that I'm reading and all of these coaching books pull out every different counseling modality, technique, and skill that I use. But then I found another coaching psychologist, and he said the same thing where he's like, you have client centered therapy, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like when these Erickson's stages of psychosocial development, William Glasser's reality therapy, choice theory, he was like, all of these, tried to distinguish how to be more focused on letting the client take the lead. And he said, which to me is more like coaching versus psychotherapy. So I'm like, so counseling is kind of like, to me, that middle ground between a psychotherapist or a coach,
Yeah. I could see that.
in between. So, like, we do a little bit of what psychotherapy is, and we do a lot of what coaching is, but we're able to do both. And
Mhm.
that's what my whole purpose of writing this lit review is to help professional counselors be better at what they do by saying this is what people are looking for when they come to counseling. And you'll be a more effective counselor because you can bill people's insurance. You don't have to pay out of pocket because coaches, you have to pay out of pocket. There's no insurance isn't covering any of that. So
Mhm.
if you want to be an effective counselor with these coaching abilities, then pick this up, do this stuff. Like this is what will set you apart from other counselors.
Mhm.
It's the feedback I get from all my clients. Like, you don't just do this, you help me over here. And I'm like, so we deal with the counseling psychotherapy side of it, but then we transition. Once they find that place of healing, we can transition into the coaching side.
Which I think is needed because it's like, okay, it's like going into a 4-year degree and getting all of the academic information. You have all the knowledge, but you've never applied it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
needing to have an internship almost, or an opportunity to just go test it out, like put it in the real world. And that's really important because then you can figure out, oh wait, maybe I have questions or I'd like to refine this somehow. And you can come back with that and say, hey, here's how it went.
Yeah.
Me having lunch with my colleague.
Yep. Put it
Okay.
into practice. All right. So our four biggest distractors. Um, Anger, fear, attempting to please, and victim energy. This is so similar. There's a book I have called Enemies of the Heart. And the four enemies of the heart are anger, fear, greed, and I can't remember the fourth one off the top of my head. But they're very similar. So,
I'm writing that down.
anger. As children, most of us were not allowed to express or even feel much anger. Our anger obviously upset the adults around us. They firmly believed in myth too, so they let us know that their anger was fine while ours would not be tolerated. As a result, most of us were never taught how to express our anger appropriately or how to use it effectively. Yet we need our anger. It can be a great motivator. It informs us that something is wrong, and often it points to another emotion that resides underneath. We usually get angry when we have been hurt, embarrassed, demeaned, discounted, or betrayed. However, our anger can easily distract us from this other deeper pain. We may then choose to stay in our anger instead of exploring what is beneath it. In some ways, this anger may actually feel good. We don't just get to avoid the pain underneath, we also get to feel more powerful and in control. It pushes many people away so we feel safer, Yet when we stay in our anger, our heart stays closed and we may lash out and hurt others.
Yeah. Just processing all that. That's so true. And I keep thinking of like how many times I've used anger to conceal what I'm actually feeling. So like embarrassment was a big one as a kid.
Hmm.
Or
I think that's still a lot of adults, they do the same thing.
yeah,
They lash out.
yep, for sure. Or being demeaned or betrayed, yeah, cast aside, that sort of thing. Or just
Mhm.
hurt. So, but we don't want to show that that's a vulnerable emotion, right? Showing sadness or showing embarrassment or um
Yeah, you big crybaby. That's not that big of a deal. Get over it. All those dismissive comments we heard from adults.
for sure, yeah, being shamed for having feeling
People,
something.
yeah. People who are afraid of their emotions and don't know how to feel them are the only ones that will make fun of you for having your feelings.
Yep. That's where sarcasm comes
Their
in.
shame. Yeah, that's their shame.
Mhm.
Um, the most innocent expression, like validation of what she's saying here is I remember when we were staying at my mom's when they were at the condo and my nephew, so there's three boys, my little sister has three boys, and her oldest one, Graydon, he must have been probably 5, 4, and his younger brother's a year younger than him, so he would have been like he was probably 4 and 5, because he came running over. A 4-year-old can run pretty fast, but a 3-year-old can't, so I wouldn't so he's probably 4 and 5, otherwise they would have been 5 and 6. But anyways, they're getting ready to watch a movie, and my mom said, "Hey, Graydon, go turn the light off." And I was bringing down popcorn, and I heard her say it because I was walking down the basement steps. And as soon as he got to the light, his little brother Brock came running around the corner and flipped the switch right before he could get to it. And he was like, "Oh," and he just hauled off and bam, punched him right in the face. I was like, Graydon, oh my gosh. I was like, Brock, are you okay? That must have hurt. And he's screaming. He runs over to my mom. He comes storming over. And my mom's like, why did you do that? Why would you hit him? You can't do that. Goes into the correction, right?
Mhm.
And me and my master's program of feel your feelings, learn to feel your feelings. I sat down with Graydon and I looked at him and I said, buddy, anger is normal. Your brother took something away from you. You were asked to do something and then he snuck in there. I said, why do you think you got so angry? Why did that feeling come out so strong? And he said, because it protects me. And I was like, ain't that the God honest truth? Like if a 5-year-old knows that, like that's his understanding, like that's so true. And it was so profound to me in that moment because I had struggled for many, many years growing up in a house with a father, a biological father who was always angry, like bipolar, screaming, breaking things, drug at all of that, beating the crap out of us. It was like when we were in the store and that guy started yelling at his like 3-year-old daughter because she was getting whiny, and he's like, you sit down or I'll shut you up right now, you don't act like that in public. And it took everything in me not to go over there and be like, excuse me, sir, if I ever hear you talk like that to her again, I will report you to children's services.
Mhm.
Because and his wife was standing, or girlfriend, whoever was standing next to him, and like so much shame, she's just looking down like, don't know what to say or do. And I part of me regrets not speaking up in that moment, but it's like anger is such it can be so motivating, but it can be so devastating at the same time. And if you don't understand really what's going on underneath that emotion, what feelings are driving that emotion, like you will be miserable and alone for most of your life.
Mhm.
No stability, no long-term commitments. People don't want to be around you after a while. They'll just stop showing up. And that was me. Like I get it. I understand anger and the implications that it has in our lives. It's isolating.
Mhm.
And to me, anger and shame, I mean, that's like anger hides shame.
Yeah, I think I've seen it in both ways, and I definitely with, I know there's been situations too with my own family, and I'm not calling anybody out in particular, but, family members and children, and seeing certain things like that happen too, but more subtly, and the way things are handled, and me being like, "Listen, just because the former generation did it that way does not make it okay. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that we're gonna say we don't con."
It doesn't mean it was helpful.
Right, right, we don't carry forward the sins of our parents, so, but people who are just not even questioning those motives or thinking for themselves. So, but I think that's the beauty of having not being in that state anymore, not being that child. Now you have the ability to step up and say something. You have the ability to cover for that child who doesn't have the cover. So you are being the protection that you needed at one point.
Yeah.
So,
I also would challenge the "because it protects me" statement. I think it's a false sense of protection. I think what we think it protects us from is being vulnerable and expressing hurt and pain
yeah.
or fear of rejection.
So anger and then fear. That's the next one. You just named it. So,
Before we go into fear, to reiterate, how we express our anger towards someone else says far more about us than the person that we're angry with. As we grow in our own everyday narcissism, we'll discover that we'll get angry much less often. As your
mhm,
wounds heal, you won't get triggered as often and you won't take what others do so personally. When you do get angry, you'll get over it far more quickly. You'll usually express the anger simply, directly, and respectfully, and then be done with it. And you won't use anger to distract yourself from feeling other deeper emotions. If I can simplify anger like he does in that book, Enemies of the Heart, he broke down anger in all of the many different ways that we become angry, or like what's underneath lying it. And he said, if you were to simplify this, every emotional outburst of anger basically comes down to I'm not getting my way.
mhm,
So every time you feel angry, ask yourself, am I feeling this way because I'm not getting my way? Because if I'm not getting my way, and I'm angry, then I should equally accept that the person that's not giving me my way, if I were to do it my way, they wouldn't be getting their way and they would be allowed to be angry with me.
mhm.
And that's the balance of the ego.
Hey y'all, thank you so much for listening today. Jess and I are doing something a little bit different, and we are starting to split up the podcast length, and we are going to be spacing out each episode over a couple of weeks. So you will get the rest of today's message next week, and we are grateful that you are listening, and we hope that you will tune in next week to finish our discussion over everyday narcissism.